the microphone is on now. I don't know if they'll pick up very well, but the live stream microphone is on.
Howdy, howdy. I don't even know. Got quiet.
We're gonna make talk really loud and that way.
The microphone is acting.
Well, that microphone may not be turned on. You may have to push the button on that microphone. But either way, just talk.
Hello.
Just talk loud.
It'll work. We're working on it. Yeah.
He had an error.
Oh, I didn't make it. I'll be.
He still had 15 on it.
Oh,
See, I'm on QC before I pass it down.
you're doing
The bank
good.
folks, poor things. They probably just dread us changing.
Can I authorize someone to sign something?
No.
You know, you're being recorded right now.
I had to do enough of that for
True.
my boss and stuff.
Yeah. So it's in signature. How many more you got?
You already said there was like 20 something.
2022.
Haven't you done finished yet?
Then it depends on how many grants we have. We've had them up to 30.
April said it's fine.
I know, and it's showing it's not connected, so it's whatever. It's a surprise. It's a surprise.
Okay. Everyone here. Good. You running the stream? All right, good. We're going to call this City Council special meeting to order the budget workshop to order at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 26th. Let's do a roll call real quick.
Jim Martinez, District 1.
District 4. Houston Martin, District 2.
The Bush Runner, District 3.
Bruce Lee, District 5.
Bruce Alexander, Mayor. All right, does anybody here like to make any citizens' comments? Just so everybody knows, we're not required to do that during the workshop, but it's just a good idea to always do it. Anyone else? Any other comments? Hearing none, we move on to item 4, discussion and action items. Just so everybody knows, there's no action items to be taken in a workshop. That's why it says below budget workshop number 1. So this is simply a workshop. This is the first of many. This one I asked specifically to deal with revenues because I'm just so everybody is clear. By ordinance, the mayor, it's the mayor's budget prepared by the administrator presented to council. You got that? Okay. So I want the process to follow to get y'all engaged. This is really something I wanted last year, but we got in late on it, so I understand. Old school, so we can sit here and go line by line and hash out anything, any questions anybody has. So there's no questions, misunderstanding when we all get done. Okay? So that's what the purpose of these are. And right now, I'm going to turn this over to Leroy, Scott and Leroy. I know, just so clarity, I mean, I'd asked that we weren't going to do presentations, but that's okay. We'll do this pretty quick. But I want to touch base on something really quick, Scott and Leroy, before you go through. When you get down here and you start talking about the budgeting processes, I will tell you that, and I don't want to speak for them, but we were in Bastrop last week and we went through a whole hour exercise on budgeting processes. And I know Tobin probably hasn't gone through anything like this. So that's up to y'all if y'all want to go through that. There's different ways to do projects. I figured that. So I don't know if you want to go through that pretty quick, you can, but go from there.
More for reference.
All right.
You don't have to go over it.
All right. All right. Yeah, basically my outtake on a budget is Give me about 3 to 5 years worth of history and mark the trends and move on. Plan for anything that's unforeseen. It's to me, that's a very basic way of doing a budget, and it works, in my opinion. Budgets are not to be exact. They're a tool to work with. Yeah, you want to hit your marks. Yeah, you want to get as close as you can. But if you miss them, you miss them. That's what amendments are for. And you go from there. All right. Scott, I'll turn this over to you guys if you want to talk about fund balances, the bonds, go on from there.
Yes, sir. So we'll probably go through a presentation of just and you all, yeah, I'm saying, you have a printout in front of you, and you should have received this in a packet, I believe, an online packet. So this will go through, it's only about 10 sides, I believe, and it's going to go through the basically the funds that are available. And one of the things Mayor pointed out via email this morning was that there's, we didn't cover all the special revenue funds. There's a couple of smaller ones like the library, the school security, et cetera. We do have that information for you if you'd like to look at it. Those funds are generally restricted to very specific purposes. And so that's, we try to focus on the main special revenue funds.
Yeah, I just want to make a point too, when you're talking about, oh, you're just talking about special funds. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hold my comment.
So I'm going to turn the time over to Leroy to go through this presentation real quickly. Stop. This is your meeting, so if you have a question or you want clarity, please stop us anytime. As the mayor's like pointing out, this is a workshop. Just for us to talk, review things, and make sure everybody knows something.
This was presented to council back in February, this CIP presentation, so I'm gonna kind of go through it right quick.
Let me throw something else right out there for you, just to explain the format, further what Scott just said. The reason we're sitting down here is because it's a workshop. It's just short of a free-for-all. So don't hold back, don't hesitate. Okay, this is extremely interactive.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's the whole purpose for this. So once we
I want everybody to consider the rules.
once we get a no decision but a general consensus on something, then we can start moving to the next phase and things like that. But I wanted the revenues first to see what we've got to work with. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm just thinking next week. Anybody has an issue, give me a lunch and battle it out.
So right quick, where does the money come from? There's a few pots of money that, besides the general fund and utility fund, we also have bond funds that we have as well as special revenue funds. And we'll get to that in a little more. These are our current bond issuances that we've had for the past probably 5 years. The latest one is from bond 2025, and that was about a $7 million bond that we had in general fund. Scott mentioned the special revenue funds, like park project, hotel, motel, port security, and so forth. These are the current balances. Well, as of February, of course, they probably increased just a little, but not very much. And so these are the ones that we pretty much have used throughout the year. Right quick, the general fund, we had talked about the 120 days versus the 90 days, and so I updated the slide.
I'll stop real quick. So 120 versus 90. 90 is your adopted policy, and I really appreciate the mayor pointing this out too. Because kind of some of the things we take for granted. We talk about this so many years in a row. But our written policy says 90 days. So why are we going with 120, or why is that even being discussed? When we went out to get our bond rating, so y'all have an A minus rating, which is really good rating, it's better than the federal government. One of the things that the rating agencies recommended was 120 days. And generally that's going to help you get a little bit better bond, which saves you money to issue that. But strictly speaking, you have your policy says 90. And that 30 days makes a difference because it's depending on your operating budget, it'd be about $15,000 a day to run, depending on utility fund and general fund. So it will make a difference in the amount of money available. And we'll show you both those numbers so you know what if you would go down to 90 days, how much more money that make you available to you.
It just real quick, going to add on to that. I pointed it out because that's what our policies show.
Yeah.
But I agree that we should do everything to try to maintain a 120. Because I'm with you on the bonds, because I went through the bonds over the other one. We had a AA rating, but hadn't got that rating because of the additional
Because
reserve.
you're in a really, they like, the irony is, okay, so, and this is something else to be aware
So I
of
understand
as we talk about this. The irony is, when you go get that rating, they want you to get a really good financial standing, right? And it doesn't matter if you have 397 days, like we have more than 300 days in reserve. As soon as you start spending that money, these same rating agencies are like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? So one of the things when I'm on those calls, when I'm on those calls sometimes, I try to convey is that we do have an adopted CIP that contemplates dribbling down our fund balances so that when they see us making those expenditures, it doesn't make any alarm bells go off in the rating agency's minds, that they understand, no, this is all according to the plan that the city council has adopted and supported. So just be aware.
It's the
They-
same
they
concept
want you
when
to
you talk
have money
about your personal credit rating. They give you a better credit rating when you have available a lot of credit, but if you use so much of that credit, they penalize you.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
So right now, what we showed back in February was 120 days.
Yeah.
120 days, that's 1.78 billion, or $1.7 million, to have 4 months of, reserves in our account. After we've updated the slide earlier to reflect 90 days, so now it's 1.3, and that's what I just passed out. So you have 1.3 versus the 1.778 as far as number, what that days looks like. And so in this case, in February, we said that 120 days, they have about $2 million worth of excess fund balance. When you take that down to 90, now you're at 2.4, almost 2.5 million.
Yes, can we go back real quick to the special revenue funds?
Sure.
Do these specific funds feed into the general fund?
No,
No, so these
they're
are separate.
maintained separately.
Okay.
Yes.
They have their own bank account.
Okay. And is there a certain amount of time that we have to spend this money, or it can just sit there?
It rolls over.
Or it just rolls over? Okay.
You're correct.
Yes.
That's a
Yes,
great
that-
question, because
That's
there's
not correct at
Yeah,
all.
some of them you do have to spend like,
Impact fees,
yeah, we were talking about this the other day, impact fees have a time limit.
10 years or roll them back or give them back.
I feel like there's another one too, so there are a couple of funds where we have to, where we have to spend money within a certain amount of time.
These I know you don't have to leave. These
Okay.
are your-
But I guess my question along that lines, Valerie, is there provisions on how those funds can be used? Or how are our hands tied in using that, for example?
So like for the court technology and court security, you
Got it.
only use that in the court department and nothing else.
So let me pick on the court security, for example. The court security fund could pay for the bailiff that's in here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So that could account for part of the police department salary, technically.
Right.
Okay.
The hotel motel has specific, same thing, has specific.
Tourism.
Right, and that's.
Okay.
Well, another thing to think about.
I just wanted to ask that.
If you were making changes, for instance, you wanted to increase security at City Hall, because City Hall hosts the court,
Yes.
you could use some of those funds from the court security fund to pay for those improvements at City Hall.
Valerie, I didn't want to take, I
No,
just want to
that's
expand on that. How do we get to use those
Right,
funds?
yes, because I'm just trying to understand just the structure alone.
Yes,
And so at some point throughout the next couple of months, will we deep dive into how this money is allocated? Like, is it, like the Station House project, like how, is it just something that city council budgeted 12,000 per year? Or just at some point,
Those
not
are-
today, but at some point?
Yeah, so let's talk about where the source of funds are.
Yeah,
So special parks project funds, those are funds that are raised by the group that does fundraising at the park, and there's two groups out there.
Okay.
There's one that is Friends of the Regional Park. They have their own account and manage their own funds.
Yep.
But from time to time, there are fundraisers and other things that are done out there where, like the pool, for instance, does disassociated groups will raise funds and they'll give to the city for safekeeping. So that's what those funds are. They're squirreled away, and we put that in special parks funds because that's where that money came from. Legislatively or legally, it's a little different. 'Cause the city could use those funds for other purposes. We have designated them for this.
That's what I was going to
You
ask.
could change.
If once somebody gives some money to the city, there's no strings on the city unless the city council attaches strings to it. By ordinance.
Depends on how the money is given. If it's given, okay, so. depends on
Generally,
how the money is
generally.
given. If it gets given and said, hey, this must be used for this purpose, and the city accepts the money for that purpose, for instance, when you're making, you didn't know this, I'm not a tax person, so don't take this as tax advice, I'm not providing it today to anyone
Right.
here or the city. But there are IRS exemptions from paying taxes and make certain donations, so fire,
Sure.
police, and parks are the three categories. Check with your tax person. So when those donations are made, if someone were to make a donation like that, they're sometimes looking for that tax deduction, if you will, to make that payment. And the city is essentially tying its hands to how that money will be used. But again, there's a difference between designated funds. So the city, so for instance, you all have designated funds for your interest. I say you all, council, you inherited council, whether you actually consider them or not. Council made a decision to delegate the funds from the interest on the interest-bearing account, general fund, towards helping City Hall, renovation stuff. That money's set aside. But because those are just designated funds, you can council can redesignate those at any time. There are designations or things that council sets and changes, right? But then there are state law, the right term, it's not designated, it's assigned there's another legal term for it, that by state law, they don't use. So the security fund we just talked about, and this court security falls in that realm. It has legal code by state law says this is what you can't get. So, hotel, motel tax, the same thing. Legal code says you can't get. We've had some experience with that, so back and forth with the chamber, their contract. The Alsatian House project, back to Councilman Solis's question or comment. Those are not city funds. They are that we set aside. Those are funds. Most of them come from drop the name of this, but Mrs. Derrick and her efforts to walk people through the landmark inn. Well, landmark inn and the Steinbach House. They'll have busloads of people, and sometimes they'll pay. It's not a fee we charge, but they'll pay a fee, make a donation. Or those people coming through will drop money in that box. So this is accumulated monies of donations that were received at the Steinbach House. So that money, then again, the city has designated to put that back in to the Steinbach House. But legally, you don't really have to. Just people would be very upset.
I know I spent a lot of time on this one, but I want to clarify this on the funds because these are special funds, but the city has some restricted funds, legally restricted
Yes.
and self-restricted.
Right.
The self-restricted are not truly restricted.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay,
Yeah.
but when you get into these special funds, I'm all for the parks. But who gets to spend that money? Friends of the Park donations. How is that money spent, and who gets to spend it? Because once it comes into city's funds, then the cities has some type of say in how it's used. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So generally, we will ask the
I just want to make sure we're straight on.
Parks with the Parks Board.
Yes.
We'll make them aware of these balances. When they're coming with those projects, they have that whole list of
Okay.
projects with city. This will be a fund that we will recommend, and staff will recommend, hey, you've got
Use that.
funds sitting over there, and you want to make this improvement, we can use some of those funds to do that improvement. And depending on where that falls, whether it was a budgeted or it's by budget line item to improvements to parks.
It can use to supplement projects that were
Right.
possibly.
That's generally what we'll try to do with those funds.
All right.
That's how they've been used
And an
historically.
example of that is relevant in the last decade or so is with the city's summer swim team. When they collected funds, they were collecting funds so that they could provide kids with swimsuits and things like that. And so all of that money, when it was donated, the first year that it came to the city, instead of being set aside in a separate account, it went to general fund. And so the next year, when families had an expectation that the money that they had raised and donated and was going into the city wasn't there, there was a lot of hardship and bad feelings about it, which I suspect is a big part of the reason why things like the Alsatian House project and within the Parks Special Projects Fund have those allocations, and it's not necessarily a legal thing, it's a matter of whether or not people trust that money that they donate for certain things that are part of the community will be used in that way.
I understand.
Part of transparency.
Who manages those accounts?
They're managed here at the city. We reconcile the bank accounts monthly and give reports to the parks director. We can turn reports back to the this committee.
So whether it's income or outcome,
It's all
you
goes
have balances.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so wherever that money's put in,
Right, we make deposits are made here, that checks here, so it's all done here. So
That's another reason why those are maintained separately, so that way when there's a question, hey, I thought there was $40,000, but there's only 20, what happened? We can go back and say, no, there's your inflows and outflows, you're not going to spend. Yep.
On the bond issuances, do we have
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
but balances left over?
Yeah, we do, that's on a little later slide.
In the statement on general fund, so if I read this, 2.4 change, we can plan against, there's nothing else encumbering that number.
Correct. Yeah, that's if you were to go down to 90 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, that's a good way to look at it.
Okay.
Now, every year, that fund balance will change. Well, it'll change by some amount, depending on how much we add. And we generally wait until after the audit to tell you what the audited fund balances are.
Larry, we're jumping all over, but I just want to ask you a question on the bond issuances. Those are the actual bond and the value of those bonds when they were issued.
correct. That's whether or not the balances.
Okay. That was what they were when they were issued. Some of those have been closed,
Yes.
some of them have been not.
Yes, and I try to make the distinction a little bit later in the presentation.
You know, I'm just gonna make an off the cuff comment, and you take whatever you want, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row issuing bonds may not be the best thing to see in a public's point of view, but with people don't understand what they're for, so we'll go from there.
Well, I'll just build on that a little bit. One of the reasons that we issue bonds as frequently as we have is in part to deal with that tax rate,
Right.
trying to maintain. We've been anticipating that we'll reach a point. Honestly, when we originally laid out the plan to have a tax rate of 0.5223, in order to maintain that tax rate, we play with the INS portion of it.
Mhm.
If we could just as easily play with the O&M. In other words, well, I say that on the O&M side, the operations and maintenance. Yeah, I'm going to explain that real quick. Yeah, thank you. So O&M is operations and maintenance, and INS is your interest and receiving. That's your bonds, the amount of money you collect to pay off your bonds. Now, the amount of money you collect to pay off your bonds is calculated. It's based on how much debt service you have every year, your tax levy, and what it takes to pay that off. The city has issued in the past some of its bonds to the utility fund are backed by full faith and credit of the city, meaning that even though they were not issued as strictly revenue bonds, because when you issue a revenue bond, you're going to pay a slightly higher rate. And so a lot of cities, when they go and issue something through a utility fund, they'll put a tax pledge on the back of it. It basically says, if for whatever reason our electric system doesn't have as much money, or we don't do the right rates, or whatever, and there's not enough money to pay these bonds, we'll raise our tax rate to the level necessary to pay those bonds. Now, we've never had to do it. No city I've ever worked for that used that strategy has ever had to do that. The utilities, when you issue those bonds, there's a lot of work that goes into calculating what it takes to pay those off, to ensure your rates are right, et cetera. So when you do that, you're doing it knowing that, hey, this is a utility bond. But what it does for your financial advisor, that Samco, who's most of you have not met yet, but Mark McClain will be issue bonds. Will meet Mark, or now his son Jack, is part of the firm. They'll come and talk to you. But one of the things that they will do from year to year, you'll see some of this, and Mayor and I talked about this, I think, maybe last year, is they will move, rather than issue more debt, they'll go and move some of that tax pledged money over into our INS, into the INS calculation, because they can't, because legally we can do that. And it keeps us out of trouble with anybody and everybody else. So that's been our strategy. But back to why we issued that, it's mostly because the O&M side, the operations and maintenance, by state law, you can only raise that a certain percentage every year. So right now it's 3%. You're limited before you're forced with some type of rollback election or an election by the populace to support that tax rate. The INS has no such feature at this time. The state legislator's been talking a lot about these legislative sessions changing this rule. But bottom line, if we're trying to maintain that 0.5233, you can do a little bit on the O&M, the operation and maintenance. You go up to your statutory limit, and then the rest of it you got to make up somewhere. And we've been making it up either by shifting over prior issued bonds, their payments, or by issuing new debt. And I agree, kind of this
What happens is, just think of it like this. I'm going to use city of San Antonio for example. I'll use Castroville too, but even more so San Antonio. They're talking about raising their tax rate the first time in 20 some odd years. Think about that. We haven't raised our tax rate in 4 years, 4 or 5 years. But what we've done by issuing more debt, we've reduced the amount of money available for operations and maintenance. What do you think about that?
From property taxes.
From property taxes.
Now, what's a lot of
But without getting into a long thing, last week TML did a broad stroke, and all I know is broad stroke, that the legislature last time was to do away or streamline the ability for cities to issue COs because of that, because of what they were using them for. COs originally were thought to be for emergency uses, but it's been interpreted and changed. It's just an easy funding mechanism for the city that doesn't require voter approval. But there is pending, and they anticipate legislation to come back in next year to do away with the cities or severely restrict the city's ability to do those because of that. So I just wanted to throw that out. Okay.
We felt the squeeze on the OEM side, to Mayor's point. What's allowed us really is our sales tax. We've had sales tax that's kind of more than made up the difference every year. Hopefully that trend continues. Certainly when we see the commercial come online out at Osage Oaks, that will help us. It should help us. But that's really what's today was to do some of those things. But these are all strategies the council should be aware of. If you won't get it all today,
No.
this will probably bear repeating 2 or 3 times, and that's perfectly fine. Go through as often as you can need it. Right?
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna go forward because we have almost an hour and a half.
I know.
already. So this
Well,
next
maybe
slide
more.
is the utility fund. Remember, this is based off 120 days, and so when you drop it down to the 90, it goes from 3 million, it goes down to 2.2 million. It's 90 days. So of course you have more to spend. You have 4.9 to spend versus 4.1 to spend. Does that make sense? So I did a slide, something like that.
I'll tell you right now, we're going to get into this later, but we're forecasting kind of where y'all are sitting for your revenues and expenditures for the current year, the one year right now. And you may or may not remember last year when the utility fund was adopted. In fact, the last, I think, 3 years, we've adopted the utility fund budget. We've adopted it anticipating that we were going to use some amount of the utility fund's fund balance to balance that fund. And every year I say the same thing. This is not recommended. You don't balance your ongoing expenditures using one-time monies, right? It's a bad business model. But the reason we've done it is for 2 reasons. One, we have a very significant fund balance over the utility fund. And the other is, we've already raised rates several times in the city, and our rates are fairly high. Now, granted, one of the things I do, and I will do as part of our budget process this year, is a rate study, just to see, nothing real drawn out or expensive or anything like that, just staff going out and doing a survey of what the surrounding rates are for water, sewer, gas, trash, that kind of thing. So you all have an idea of where you stand regionally in terms of your costs that you're paying as residents. So we'll do that, because I think it's time to do that again. But that said, we've kind of been trying not to raise utility rates. But when we forecast what our expenditures are going to be, we've been saying, there's not enough revenue coming in without raising rates, and so we're going to use the fund balance. So this year, right now, based on our best math, it looks like you're going to use a minimal amount of fund balance, if any at all, in the utility fund.
Okay.
We'll see how it plays out, but that's good, because I don't remember how much, like the year before, we thought we were going to use like $1 million. This year, I don't remember what the budget amount was, but it doesn't look like we're going to need very much, if any at all, of the fund to balance the utility fund. That's good. That means that fund balance still strong and healthy, not being whittled down.
Leroy, you said this fund balance, the general fund, 2.4 million on a 90-day, but you didn't give us one of the utilities.
Yeah,
but at
sorry.
4.1 on 120, it'd be closer to 5, right?
Yeah, you're the utility one.
Close to 5.
Yeah, 4.9.
You know, here's another issue that just so I can bring this up. I mean, we can talk about these if we want to get through the budget stuff. Well, we can talk about this stuff when we get to expenditures on other things on capital projects, not truly budget. Don't think about these, like Scott just said, don't think about these fund balances to build your budget. Think of these when you're talking about capital improvement stuff moving forward. More than one time I was involved in budgets with the city when word got out that they had this kind of fund balances. And since we published this, word's out that we have this kind of fund balances. And it's kind of like, how dare you try to raise anything until you spend that money? And that's a public perception,
I agree with that.
okay? Because it's not our money, it's the people's money.
Well, there,
We should
people
be,
are also saying.
we should invest it back in the
Well,
city.
people are also saying because social media, you know, the social media was saying the city was broke.
It ain't.
It's not, exactly, so publishing it has helped change that as well. The social media was saying we were broke.
So the best answer would be to people who ask, so the information is public. Why do you have such a high fund balance at all? What is that price?
Well,
So that's,
yeah, exactly. We're working through we don't use fund balance reserves to balance the budget. That's based on here. But this council will look seriously about capital improvement projects to use those reserves in lieu of additional debt. Because you have combined, you have easily $7 million worth of that, and that's not to say you got to spend it all, but projecting that's a lot of capital improvement projects to
but
go
we
down
have
the road.
the improvement projects, do we have those on the books now? Do we have the-
Yeah, so you have a CIP, and we had a CIP meeting early part of this year to review some of the projects as well. So, but that's something that I think we're going to talk about as we go through the budget, is identify projects and have staff clarify, here's the prioritized projects from the old CIP, the one that's on the website, and the ones that were discussed in January, and given new intelligence, if you will, new kind of information we're working our engineers with to kind of prioritize, here's what we recommend.
Well, before we go too far with saying these are fund balances, these are inclusive of all funds that we've received, including the $3.5 million we received in September, right? Or is those bond?
No, those are separate.
Those bond runs are separate.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so we have this plus probably a few $1 million bond funds.
Yes, sir. And that's in here too.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they're not inclusive of this
No.
because that even makes.
Well, and like your Texas Water Development
Okay,
Board funds,
yes, sir.
those are separate as well.
Got it.
So when we talk about it, we'll give you the total.
Got
Yeah.
So like the general fund, unrestricted balance, it shows 3.5 million for the
Okay.
general fund, and those are the projects that
That's all
we
I wanna make
authorize
sure.
in the dollar amount.
And that 2 million on the general fund cash, that's 120 days.
Okay.
That's not the 90 days.
Now,
Can we go back a couple pages, or you want to keep going? I just want to ask you a couple of things real quick as we go. Your utility funds, your restricted caches that you have on that. I'm going by your stuff here if I can. And I know we have a lot of questions, so I don't want to interrupt, but the water acquisition fund, that's a self-imposed restricted fund. We bought water rights recently. Did we charge those against this?
Yes.
So that's an additional $400,000 balance that's sitting in there that we can use to acquire water rights.
I want to pause you real quick because that's a good question. I want to verify that.
Yeah,
You did? And there's still 437 left?
then we didn't buy enough water.
I want to double check.
Please,
Let me double check that, Mayor. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how much was in there before.
because
We
if
should have
there's,
spent that down.
it may seem like a lot, but 30 acre feet of water is 30 acre feet of water. You buy it, move on, because this is self-generated.
I would have verified that because I know we spent, y'all
Yes,
said go buy these. And
Yes, sir.
I wrote a check and it should have just damn near emptied that acquisition fund. And unless we got a bunch more acquisition money that I don't know about, I think that may, and I apologize.
that was a question I wanted to pose, because if it's sitting there and its intent is for water rights, let's go buy more water rights.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
the impact fee, we really need to get the group together to budget on how to spend that. And I don't know, Leroy, I'm going to ask you this because impact fees, I think it's chapter 395, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's money in, money out. You have to log it in when somebody pays. If you have to spend that money in 10 years, you got to give it back with interest.
Yeah, the vast majority that's been collected inside of here, so most of the impact fees
Okay.
have been collected with all this new development.
Okay, and what and that goes, those are tied to your CIP. Just so you guys know, your water impact fees, wastewater are tied to impact fee CIP projects. You can't just use them for anything. And I just wanted to clarify, there's a pocket of money to do things. We need to do them.
And the water impact fees can only be used on
Water,
enterprise,
water.
water acquisition.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hang on.
So water sewer impact fees.
Right.
What can it be used for?
Water for water projects that are identified in your CIP, your wastewater tied in your CIP. Originally, you used to say projects that are attributed to growth. Well, everything's attributed to
Right.
growth. Okay, because we use it to upgrade lines for growth.
Okay,
Okay, but it has to be projects that are identified. You can't just come and add something.
right, like
Okay.
we have some of these old water lines.
It has to be identified with your plan.
Status
Well, that-
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, but again, like
But there's different things. You have to look at that.
yeah, so the impact fees, the way I've been told is maybe it's just a safety thing, maybe
Sure.
it's not abundance of caution, or something that people use, legal, I don't know if it's a legal term, but using abundance of caution.
Right.
Is like, the asbestos lines, for instance, wouldn't be impact fees,
No.
because that's really maintenance of your existing system. You don't get any additional utility out of it, it's just replacement. Impact fees, when they calculate them, the state has a whole litany of rules about how they can be calculated, and not just any old CIP project can be used just by the impact fee. It needs to be something related to growth.
Right.
And I hear what the mayor's saying, like, there's a lot of elements of growth,
You got to be careful.
you gotta be careful.
Okay.
You can add those, but unfortunately, I think when we start to, because I want to be real clear on that, when we look at capital projects.
Yeah. Well-
Unfortunately, most of the older systems would not be eligible for impact.
That's correct.
Here's my question, when we started talking about the growth on, a few years ago, the growth on the east side, we were talking about looping the system.
Right.
And that we had a small supply line that goes from across the river.
Mhm.
And we were talking about making it bigger.
Mhm.
Could this be used?
It depends. It's how your engineer works it out.
Okay.
If the incremental increase in the line is directly attributed to the growth, then yes.
Okay.
But if
The answer is potentially.
the answer is it depends.
Okay.
It's how the project is defined and the purpose for the project.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. But okay, on the utility drainage fund, I'm going to make a comment here. Yes, it's the fifth utility, but it's a general fund expenditure. So I've always asked this, that the utilities and the drainage, anything to do with drainage is a governmental function, is a general fund expenditure, and those funds should not be in the utility system. That's my opinion, but it is a fifth utility. We could, just so you guys know, the purpose for that utility, the $5 you pay each month, is to generate revenue to pay the debt service on drainage projects. Period. Okay? And the debt service for drainage projects is a general fund debt. So I'm just making a comment. That we've had that discussion before too.
But we could scratch out the word utility to say drainage fund.
Okay, but anyhow, the 129, again, that's funds generated to pay their annual debt on the, what is it, 1.5 million or something like that, yeah? 1.3, something like that. Okay, I just wanted to ask you that and clarify.
I'm gonna skip over to what we spend because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for revenue.
Okay, yeah, please.
So again, going back on the general fund, at 120 days, we have $2 million. We can drop that down to about 2.4 for the 90 days. And of course, what's committed for City Hall. And then from that 3.5 for the bond 2025, we've already encumbered about 2.8 million, and y'all approved that back on 224. Those are the projects that were assigned for that particular bond. And then what's left from there is about $676,000 from that from that 3.5. So
So net utility fund, we can plan $676,000.
No, that was general fund.
That's general fund, sorry. The right side is utility fund.
What's the planning total we can plan unencumbered for utility?
It depends on if it goes to 90 or 120,
90?
because 90, that fund balance pulls up to 2.9, right? Oh, 4.9, sorry.
Something like that.
So utility fund, we have 4.9 to plan against.
Well, that's reserve funds, plus you have some unexpended bonds.
Right, but that was going from,
Then we have that 3.5,
Yeah.
because we never had a CIP planning thing for
Right.
utilities.
Well, out of the 3.5 of the utilities, you spent $2 million on the well.
Right.
You spent 700,000 putting the motor in. So
Right.
you're around,
You have about 980 left from that 3.5 on the.
Okay, that's that one, okay.
That's
Okay.
unencumbered, that.
But we have drainage here, once again, which is,
I know,
Oh,
I know,
okay.
I know.
okay.
And the 2.5 over those restricted funds, and we're just talking about the water acquisition fund, the water impact fee, as well as the drainage fund. That makes up that 2.5 on the restricted purposes on the utility side.
Let me back up 2 pages. I want to ask you one question about restricted cash, restricted funds. 3 pages back. You said customer deposits, okay, in the utility system. That's not all the customer deposits, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's all the customer deposits we currently hold.
Correct. The balance, yes.
Okay, because a lot of customer deposits, like mine, there's no deposit on file because the city always refunded those after so many months of good service. But there was a policy change, I guess, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So a lot of the older accounts, mine, for example, is 30 years old, they don't have deposits on file because they were refunded. The city doesn't refund deposits now.
Only when they move out and when they move out and they're pay off their whatever their balance is, then they get the deposit back. Whenever somebody moves into the city and they again have to give a deposit for the utility,
Uh-huh.
it gets deposited to that customer deposit.
But once somebody makes a deposit, it stays as long as the
It
account is
stays.
active.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that. And the deposits on residential 200, or whatever they are, and on commercials different?
Yes, I thought we rate
Yeah, we did.
the residential.
I can't say the numbers, I'm just saying.
I know we did.
Do you have any deposits that are held in a CD?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's all.
I only ask that because, again, previously the city allowed commercial accounts to be put in a CD,
Okay.
where the city held the principal, but the person got the interest. Right.
That's a good, we invested some money though, right, for the city? Or we did something?
Well, your deposits are purely restricted.
Yeah,
They're not sure.
no, I thought we,
Most of our funds are sitting at the council for the same thing.
okay,
We have a few funds over at VOK, which is, that's part of our prior bond issuances.
yeah,
That's what,
Okay.
$1 million there,
Right.
that's all we have.
Thank you.
okay,
Yeah.
The bank, we did talk a little point about investing in a tax pool.
Mhm.
A tax pool is a managed fund that invests for a lot of cities. Ultimately, we decided not to do that for 2 reasons. One, most of the deposits are sitting in a local bank. If we were to move those deposits, we could end up adversely impacting our own community.
Right.
And importantly, the bank was willing to come close to matching what was the tax pool.
okay.
So we got a much better interest rate, and that was enough to.
Well, Yeah, we're fixing to, and I think next month,
Bank
a
deposit.
couple of weeks,
Yep.
we're going back for putting out for RFQs, bank depository, so different banks can literally bid on being our bank and things like that.
They had great participation. We were talking last time they went out, they only got one bid. which was
Well,
one.
to take off on what Scott just said real quick about, if you're dealing a lot with a local bank and they're dealing with you fairly, City of Lytle, everything was in the community, man, Lytle. Different leadership came in and said, whoa, wait a minute, they were not like this, man. My understanding, and I don't know for a fact, but my understanding, they weren't getting the city the returns. So the city made a change and went to Castroville, and I heard numbers of $7-8 million overnight out of that, and it created some pain, but it was a management decision based on returns. So we just have to be cognizant of the fact that we're stewards of public funds, and we have to do our fiduciary duty.
Well, trust me when I say I'm well aware that the accuracy of the information has been brought up. I looked at this note through 4 times, and just today we talked about 3 different things that I'm like, I did not catch that. I want to clear something with partners here. What is this fund balance right here on utility funds? I'm looking. The slides aren't numbered, but I'm looking at how much can we spend. That slide, the really important slide, says how much money we have available for everything.
Yes. They don't
Maybe
match,
ours,
but they don't
that's
match.
the one that matters. Not necessarily that one.
Yeah.
But the one that actually puts it all together and says,
Yeah.
here's how much general fund, here's how much utility fund. This is where all the money is. This is where you should really pay attention, like how much money you have to spend on everything.
What page is that?
That's to say it's not numbered, but it looks like that, right? It's got the 2 columns. It's the one you were asking questions about. General fund, utility
How
fund.
much can we spend?
Yeah. And it says how much can we spend on top.
Thank you.
Well, is this in our, that's big, so does 2.5 is into our, into this form? Okay, all right, great. That's the clarification I was looking for. All right, so
But
So-
the next page does not include the bonds, what left over, right?
yes, it does.
The bond
It's down at the bottom.
Bond
series.
series.
Yeah, it is. No, but this is what was confusing me. So the good news is it is right. This was, we hadn't talked about this in a while. So the 1.6 and 2.5 added together equal your 4.1.
Okay, so
3 or 4 slides earlier.
explain me about the restricted purposes then.
Yeah, so that is the Texas Water Development. Wait, no,
Because that's different than
No, no,
having
that's
$4
right.
million
that
to
is
spend
this page.
and not be able to spend $4 million.
So this page, you'll see the amounts
Sure.
are the same. So you're like, okay, where did the 2.5 come from? If you go back to your utility fund restricted cash,
Sure.
the number at the bottom says 2.5. Now, one of the numbers you'll see on my sheet is circled. It says verified. That's that water acquisition. So I want to make sure there really is that much money in there because we did go by water rights, as Mayor correctly pointed out. And I want to make sure that that isn't just I think we spent that money. So there's, and if we did, I'll confirm what that amount is at our very next meeting.
So let me make sure I understand this correctly. So let me just follow this. I have one page here. Forget the old one. Let's just look at what's in here. It says I have $4.1 million excess fund balance. But then when I flip the next 2 pages, 2.5 of it's restricted, so that's not excess to me. So the only excess is 1.6 million that we can spend on anything we want.
On anything you want. Now, the other money is available though, for
Right.
money, but it'll be it's for those purposes that
Restricted
are outlined
use.
here. So it's impact fees
Okay.
and drainage.
So if we wanted to buy hypothetically some significant equipment for John, hypothetically, we got $1.6 million to spend.
Yeah. Now that'll go up slightly, as we just talked about. If you go down to 90 days,
I understand. We have a lot of difference between 1.6 and 4.1.
So if this is a lot of information and you're like, I'm having trouble keeping up, just understand I've been doing this for 5 years and I still have to stop and wait a minute. What is this number? What's this number? Is that
Talk
number?
too fast sometimes.
So
Do we know what the averages on other municipalities about our size on the 90 days? Which
90 is a really, really good metric. Almost every city that has a good financial, football has 90 days. 90 days is like the bare minimum.
And over that,
120 is, I wouldn't even go, I wouldn't go so far as to say gold standard. It's really not. It's just best practice. That's probably what it is. It's best practice. A lot of cities have 110 to 120 for the same reason. Bond. Most of those cities are issuing bonds. Now, that's as a policy. When you go and actually look at cities and how much they actually have fund balance, many of them are in the same situation we're in, where they just have trying to know where fund balances, they aren't spending it or whatever. That's pretty common. There's some broke cities out there. We're not one of them. I do tell people that we're poor because sometimes people have really expensive, champagne taste on beer budget, and you have to remind people we're on a beer budget here. And my employees, principally, I will tell them, hey, we're poor. I know that you like to look at condo, you like to look at saws, you like to look at whatever, we're poor. We don't have their kind of money or resources. We need to be frugal, we need to be mindful. But we aren't broke by any stretch, and we do have, we're good, solid financial standing. The fact is, once we spend our money, it doesn't replenish very quickly at all. It's more like dollar for every kind of triple. All right, whatever else we want.
Sarah, are you okay with going to revenues?
Sure. Sure, that was the whole purpose here.
Yeah.
You laid out some foundations here, and it's good conversation that we know what we have available.
Let's just go through, and this is a lot, using a lot of methodology and some, informed guessing, put it that way, right? So some of this is forecasting, that, like the mayor described, but generally that's what we do with our expenditure budgets too. It's basically, we look at what the trends are, we look at where we are, we think about what's going on in the larger economy, et cetera, and we make that forecast. So let's just talk about that real quick on sales tax, for instance. Right now, I'm getting one of these, I gotta start clicking on them. Under the sales tax, right now we have an adopted 1.9 million.
Yep.
1.9. Our year-to-date's 1.2, and we're on track to hit 2. So we're right on the money as far as what we forecasted. I'll be honest, that's not where I like to be. I like to be 10% over. So a lot of times when I'm forecasting our sales tax in the budget, I try to pick a number that's about 10% less than what I think we'll actually do. Because that's the swing. The reason I do that is because when a sales tax, although we've been very fortunate in the last 5 years, we've had double-digit growth in our sales tax almost every year for the last 5 years. That is great. That is not necessarily normal, even for our area. If you look at just up the road of Bandera, they aren't experiencing that kind of sales tax growth. So a lot of it is our Walmart. They're one of the largest payors, and all the growth out to the east of us, there's an awful lot of people that would rather actually come our direction to go to Walmart than go the other way, go up 211 or whatever, believe it or not. So our Walmart's done very, very, very well, and that's translating to our sales tax. So back to when the sales tax swings, if you look historically, unfortunately, sales tax doesn't swing by 5% usually. It's either to the good double digits, or when it goes to the bad, it goes to the bad double digits.
Well, just real fast, real broad stroke. Valerie, Nicole, and Kobe, do you know what the city's cut on sales tax is? No, the city gets a penny and a half. The city gets 1.5, except for Walmart or out there, it's a negotiated amount, probably closer to a penny.
It would get two-thirds.
2/3, so we're penny.
Well, a penny, so the penny you get, so when you adopt a sales tax,
Yeah.
a local jurisdiction, the first sales tax any jurisdiction can adopt is the penny.
Right.
They can't, you'll never see a city that's at 6 3/4.
Uh-huh.
Because you can't legally adopt a half penny. The first sales tax you adopt will be the penny for your general fund. So the minimum sales tax across the state of Texas is either 6 1/4, which means the local jurisdiction didn't adopt a sales tax, or it's 7 1/4, they adopted that penny, or then all the way up to 8.25, and that's the maximum. And counties at one point in time could put a half penny in place,
Right.
and a lot of counties did, and this is one of them.
I believe this is
They
one of
did
them
a
too.
property tax reduction sales tax.
Right.
Of a nickel, basically, of 0.05. So the city's portion is 105, the county is a nickel.
And then the rest is the state.
The other thing that happened
Or-
to us,
Whatever.
yeah, and then the rest is, the 6 1/4, that's the state. That's what we all pay the state.
Yeah.
So to confirm, we do get Walmart's.
We get a portion of it
portion.
Yes.
because what happened was
Yes.
the ESD, there was an ESD election before Walmart,
Okay.
and without beating up anybody, it was caught off guard, and it awarded them the sales tax for everything in ETJ. And when Walmart came and the city annexed, they said, "Whoop, it's our sales tax." So the city negotiated an agreement with them to share some of the sales tax.
And I think it's I lived through the agreement like 5 times, but I think it's 2/3.
But that was a voter approved.
We get 2/3, we get 1/3.
So as we annex out there, when we do like Station Oaks, that's all ETJ. That was ETJ. That's tax revenue to the ESD that we have to negotiate with them, and we have an agreement
Yeah, and that's
as we grow.
But this
but we don't get it all.
this is off topic, but on topic for today.
Yeah.
It's something to know, to be aware of. When we talk about these development agreements, and developers come forward and say, we want to sell, we want that 380, that sweet 380, where we're going to give us back some of our property or sales tax. Well, most of that growth is happening out there in our ETJ, or not even in our city limits, where, importantly, we don't have complete control over that money. That's through an
Correct.
agreement, and we can't guarantee anything without an agreement with ESD. Like, they have to be willing to hand over.
Sure.
Can I get a question on that, just to make sure I understand? So if we annex anything into that, we have to go through this gate and negotiate, because
Their portion.
Their portion.
There'll be a portion that'll be ours that we can play with all we want if we want to, if the council wants to, but there's that other penny, that other %.
I just wanted y'all to know what portion of the sales tax comes to the city.
Yeah, that's great.
That clears it up, because they go out of rivers.
The city does not get it all. It's a portion.
Yeah, and that's true all over the state of Texas.
Yes.
So like that one in planning and zoning, they wanted that 50 acres for that commercial, and they were saying, well, you get all that tax rate. No, we don't. You know,
That's correct.
we get a third of it,
Or we get a portion of it.
or a portion of it.
Just say it that way. Okay, I just wanted to clear
No,
that.
that's great, and there's things like that, again, I take for granted, it's good to cover, so you all questions asked. We have a liquor tax, we did pretty well this year, we've already collected, you can look at what our 25 actual was.
They've come up.
Yeah, I'll say, you know,
These
this
other
is,
liquor stores.
so there is a COVID. If you're a nerd or geek and you look at the numbers statewide, there was a COVID impact to liquor tax. Pretty impressive. Pretty big meeting. Depending on the community you're in, if you're in a dry county, you do rest well. Other places, they had a lot of money. So at the Warm, we are utilizing. We do pay for a service called SAC tax. I don't know what we pay, but it's a very, very reasonable cost. The gentleman there helps us with our sales tax forecasting, but they also do some of our property tax forecasting for us. This is at a modest 3% growth. Right now, year over year, that's about what we did. That's not good news. I'm going to talk about our overall value growth, meaning I'm talking about just the base value of your properties and how much the value is. I know people complain of their tax rate. I doubt you're going to get, and you'll still get complaints, but you shouldn't get any complaints this year because, again, our values didn't go up much at all, 3%.
I just remember too that it's all a completely complicated somewhat calculation on how the tax rates come in and things like that. It's really interesting. The city, and you heard a little bit about it last week, but there's a lot more to it. You're not allowed to collect more property taxes the next year than what you collected the year before. Anything above that's a rate increase. And you're only limited to how much percentage you can go up before it has to go to the voters, before it has to. So there's a lot of complicated things in there, and it's all about trying to manage and reduce on the state level property taxes.
One that's other, other people want to make it all in. I'm all for that personally. It's not fair.
Right.
But how our cities can survive. It's fully half of our basically revenue.
Right.
Girlfriend. All right. I just realized we have to go through enterprise as well. And I think that's where we need to spend most of our time,
Okay.
frankly. So the rest of these, I'll just say, add one back to that. You'll see that year over year, the adopted number is 1,386,000, and the proposed number is 1,397,000. That's not me being ultra conservative. That's me being somewhat realistic. Unfortunately, we are, even though we see all that growth east of town with the new houses and whatnot, they just aren't coming in that quickly to make that big a difference year over year. And so that's, I think, a realistic number for property tax for next year.
If I could jump in real quick, because I know you just talked about enterprise fund. You guys have, you better sit down because you're gonna hear this, you're gonna miss it.
I'm listening.
Okay, you're gonna miss this one because it's gonna go like that. Y'all have had this information. I hope y'all looked at these things. And if you have any specific questions on any of the revenue items, times they ask. Otherwise, let's roll.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
The other thing I'm gonna mention is court fines, and I think that's I'll mention probably park fees as well, but court fines, you'll see went down $100,000 year over year. And part of that is because a big reason why our court collections have gone up is because we have a grant that's paying for the overtime for officers to go out and do interdiction on 90. It's to do with the border and some other stuff. So they're paying our guys overtime and they're out there working and they're writing tickets, right? And that's proof that the interdiction is happening. That grant may not be continued next year, and were that not to be continued, that would significantly impact our revenue. So that's one thing that Leroy and I are keeping a really close eye on when it comes to the court and maintaining our court costs. You'll see on the proposed budget, our personnel costs have gone down slightly over the current year, and that's because we're keeping a close eye on what we're spending there. The municipal court really shouldn't be a moneymaker in the city, frankly, but it should pay its own way.
So,
And that's what we're trying to keep.
okay, I'm gonna twist what you just said back in my little head. If we don't pay the officers overtime, we don't get as many tickets written. That's what I just heard.
Right. So, well, another way to say that is the way that you staff your current department, you don't really staff it for that amount of traffic.
Okay,
Like for out there, we staff it for safety in the community of Castroville, right? So we've got staffing levels for going around and doing that sort of thing. And it's not that they don't work traffic. They do. We get tickets. There's not like there's no revenue. There's some revenue. But when there's the interdiction, it is specifically for that purpose. It's only for that.
okay.
But we don't have any dedicated traffic costs. We don't.
Okay.
Castroville doesn't have it.
No, I support
Unless-
everything they do. I just wondered.
Yeah, unless it's grant funded. If there's grant funded, we have a
Okay,
dedicated traffic person there that's just there.
got it.
Now, we do have guys that go out there, as you see, not on overtime, and they're watching the school zones, and they're enforcing one intersection. Again, they're not there all day. They're just there kind of at the right parts of the day.
Good.
To do some stuff. All right. The next one is, I'm not going to actually dwell on this because we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
on parks, just look at those. One of the things that we're really struggling with, RV park revenue's gone down consistently. I think part of that is just the amount of stuff, construction and other things that are happening in the park. I think it's also our Wi-Fi has not been real reliable. Now, once we get the Wi-Fi to the community center, once it's built, there Rise Broadband, that's one of the free places that it will be added. That was contractually they're going to give to us. That'll help that situation, but I'm guessing it's some of the reasons why RV revenue is down. But that's something for us to keep an eye on. This year and future years is how's that RV park doing? It's a +1 to regional park. It's not the reason regional park exists.
Right.
There's been a lot of debate about how fancy they make that RV park, how competitive, et cetera, how big, how glamorous. And I think the general feedback has been, we want this to be a regional park that has an RV service, not an RV park that has a park next to it.
I was
Does
gonna
make
ask you
sense?
that because you have, for second one, you have a very large one that's pretty full most of the time.
Yeah.
Down on Lower Cost Road along the river, started out as 10 units, now it's probably 60, 70 units, it's still growing. And then one right up here just out of town. That's, so there's more in the area. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be great, but we need to look at that and comparable to others.
Yeah.
Make sure we're still in the market to keep people to us.
So is that
Well-
in the amount of people in the park? If I were in an RV, because it's gone up a lot.
Yeah. Depending on the weekend.
It's something definitely for the park board to look at.
So the other thing is, you got a new community center, you got a pool that's undergoing rehab, you have a pool building and showers at it. All of that has created a whole big question mark over park revenues this year, and it's a question mark next year, but in a positive way. Once the community center's finished, I expect to see quite a bit of activity and a lot more rental income and some other things. But this is a big unknown for your staff in terms of managing what the cost of running that place is going to be versus what the revenue is going to be, and how much additional revenue over and above the cost we'll have. It'll be a work in progress, a little bit of an experiment, but that'll be something else for us to keep in mind for both this budget and future budgets as we work through how to plan for the community center.
Is it legal to put up a kiosk and charge non-residents? Because New Braunfels does.
Yeah.
The park,
Okay.
okay, you gotta remember, it's generally city owned, generally city operated, supported, but it's a regional park. So it's an area-wide park. So it becomes very dicey if you're going to separate out users between residents and non-residents because of the way it's titled and functions.
You also have to look at the grant funds you've received for that park
Right.
and whether any of those grant funds were taken from doing that.
So it becomes a little different because of the way it's always been set up as.
Not for nothing, on the admin side of it, when you've got, whether it's kiosk or front desk, someone's gonna be like, my grandparents live here, and so as far as the investment that goes into doing it, it tends not to have, at least in my experience, the returns that one would hope for.
We did it where I grew up, and it worked. I mean, we charged, if you went from Brady, right, if you were from out of town, you paid $10 or whatever it was. It worked.
But what Nicole just said is how'd you deal with the people that budged on the honor system?
Understood.
For
And that's
example.
when you've got this whole administrative layer to where now you've got to have someone who's got to find that, check it, you've got so.
Look,
Okay,
I want to ask you a question on the very last item on the MBISD. We have a service agreement with them where they rent the use of the pool.
Yeah, we have a contract.
Okay.
Okay. The only other item I'll call attention to is permits and fees. That's on the next page because most of the rest of the parks are pool related. It's $400,000, so you just kind of scan in that right side, you can see a big $400,000 that pops out at you. That's our permit. That's a community development. That's Brianna's office, and that's a real number. But keep in mind that's kind of a flow through. That's actually what's helping pay for that second position for Megan, the permit person. It's increased. The activity there's increased quite a bit. You'll see that in the year-to-date number. We're at 257, and we're expecting to be around 450 by the end of the year.
Is it Veritas, Bureau Veritas?
Two of them. There's Bureau Veritas, which is residential, and Safe Built, which is commercial.
Well, Bureau Veritas, I spoke with the guy in charge of the state of Texas. And no, he proposed that we collectively get together with our folks and their reps out of Pleasanton for this area and go through any questions required, what it is, because I was asking him questions that I said, okay, your fees, yeah. Do you charge, what if somebody's plans are not right? We don't charge an extra fee. So you don't charge an extra fee to relook at them? No. Okay. What about a reinspection? No. So I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, I mean, we could do that. I understand that because we have admin costs, but I just want to try to get clear on who does what and,
Well, some of those
and what the process is.
Yeah, some of those fees are intended to be somewhat punitive.
They should be.
Yeah.
They should be. If somebody gives inaccurate, incomplete plans, it should be punitive. That you have to go waste the time. You have to spend your time to do it, and then you have to go back and do it again, just like a reinspection. So I just wanted to bring that up because I see.
The one other item, this is on the final page on the general fund. It's
I just had a question on 160 to 434 between 22 and 23 and 22 and 24.
yes,
Why, that's a lot.
it's all the growth. It's all
That's
outstation
gross.
growth.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank
It's
you.
all the new farms we got. We've had some infills, some commercial well in the city. The new buildings over here on 90, Sweet King, like all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay. I just-
So-
thank you.
Yeah. That's what I was telling you before. That's a real number, I believe, that we're about. So next page, 150, and I'll just mention this real quickly. So right now, and we'll make sure to kind of adjust this when we look at the budget. But right now, like for interest income, keep in mind, presently, that 150 isn't available for general fund purposes.
Actually, I'm going to say something right now that I don't believe you can allocate interest. It's just an expense of the general fund. I don't think you can allocate the interest to a specific thing. I'd have to ask that on an auditing purposes because interest comes in as income, and then you're allocating a certain amount for the city hall.
Right.
Okay, so it's not necessarily allocating the interest. It's I know,
Tomato, tomato, but yeah.
but
I agree.
it's the way it's the process.
Sure.
You have to follow the right process.
Yeah.
Interest is income, then you allocate a certain amount towards the project.
Yeah. Yeah, so what she's doing right now, in our audit, she has an sign,
I know.
a sign column. But I'm
but
belaboring this point because I'm anticipating council's gonna change that.
yeah, I
So
do.
I'm letting you know, which is fine, I mean, that's fine. Right now you have about 440.
Okay.
We're projecting another 150. So that's, you have that available out of the fund balance. We've already talked about that. But this 150 right now, it'd be designated.
Got it.
It wouldn't go to your bottom line. Okay. Let's
She-
go to utility funds.
Wait, hang on, Sheena, did you have some questions on any of those incomes? Okay,
Anybody else, general fund?
do anybody else have any questions on any of those?
These are all
incomes?
estimations. I mean,
Huh?
they'll change throughout as we're moving more into this year.
I understand, but the whole purpose here, folks, just so you know, is to know what you're looking at when you turn around and doing an expense budget. If you're projecting, for example, $5.3 million worth of expenditure, first of income, don't come asking for $6 million worth of expenditures.
Yeah.
Now you know the target you got to work within. That's my,
With the pool stuff, do we have it flagged where the maintenance or construction's going on and that's why we're not meeting where we should be? Because, yeah, if you look at swimming pool fees, adopted $25,000, year to date $273.
Oh, that's because it's,
Projection $14,000.
yeah, so it's not summer. That's why. But we haven't hit summer yet. In the summer, we'll probably hit that number. Because we've already got swim lessons and stuff. I'm sorry, did I answer that?
So your year-end projection then should be 25,000, not 14,000.
Possibly. Again, we'll update that number as we come along. I'm a little worried that under the pool and restroom construction and stuff that we might see it, not as quite as much activity.
I didn't know for the auditors, when they come around, putting that note in there, that way they understand this is why we didn't meet our projected or what we
They don't
adopted.
audit,
It
they don't, I'll just
doesn't
say,
hurt to have a little note.
yeah, they don't generally, they aren't gonna compare your budget to what your actuals were on an audit basis. A lot of times they're just trying to make sure the expenditures, you've allocated funds correctly. But
generally my experience is if you miss the mark badly miss the mark, they'll give you a note, or discussion item that you need to do a little better job of budget.
Yeah, they'll definitely ask questions.
Yeah. Why is it so far out?
That's why I said put a
Yeah.
note in there,
Right,
this
sure.
is what occurred, that way we approach it in
Sure.
advance instead of having to be retroactive.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Because it could be stuff like that. Why did someone supposed to might not? No, we just had to move that.
Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say something here while we go to which fund you going to go to?
Well, I actually want to mention, I skipped over this, I shouldn't have. At the very bottom of the page, and this is partly for education and partly just call attention to it. So looking at the total revenue, your total revenue is projected 4.6, that includes the 150. But the interest income was also included in the adopted budget. So if you're just to compare the adopted budgets to the adopted revenue, right, to the proposed revenue, you're off by about 250,000. If you look at one line up, it says use of fund balance. Remember, we approved use of fund balance for the streets projects. Now, right now, we are looking at getting to your 4.9. And if you look above, look at your end projections. You see how that 250 is blank? What that means is that right now, your revenues are where we're projecting them to land. You won't need to use fund balance to do those street projects.
We said use the fund balance if
necessary. That's right.
necessary, if the revenues
That's right.
are not satisfactory.
Yeah, so that does look good. The other thing, Mayor, I want to call your attention to is
Yes.
just looking at the transfers. So let's go over what transfers are and why we do them. So we do transfer funds between funds, right? So that infamous airport lease we talked about. This is not it. So there could be on the airport fund if we were paying for a lease, which we're going to this year. We talked about this morning back with the mayor. The $36,000. Actually, I think that motion was made, but not approved. In any case, if there were a transfer to the airport fund from the general fund, you'd see that in the airport budget. Right now, all you're seeing is a transfer from the airport to us. That's just for admin fees. That's $6,000. That's for finance and HR and whatnot. Utility right of way. This is maintenance. Generally there is a utility right of way in South Carolina. That's what we're doing here. we're having utilities pay for the maintenance, pay the general fund to maintain those rights of way. And it's $170,000 total spread across all the utilities. And we can talk about how we come up with those fees. And then the transfer in, this is a franchise fee. Our franchise fee is, so that's just 3.5% of anticipated revenues. And they pay based on actual, not based on what we told them they owe. So it's 3.5% of their actual revenues is what comes to the general fund. And if you look at it, think about it this way, like right now, for instance, CPS pays the city a franchise fee of 4.5%, I believe, for their electric sales to the city. So whatever they sell in their territory just outside that's in the city limits, we get 4.5%. We're charging our own utilities 3.5%. It's called a payment in lieu of taxes, by the way. That's what that franchise is. Any questions about those transfers?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to combine a couple things here. Number one, I know what I'm fixing to say is going to be a sore subject, but I'm going to bring it up. The transfer from the airport fund is not enough to cover the admin cost. Okay? The airport budget is 5% of the city's total budgets. 5% of the airport budget is a $44,000 transfer. Okay? That covers the true cost of providing service to the airport. That's my opinion. Also, the other ones, the transfers right away, franchise, make no mistake, there's probably another $150,000, $200,000 transfers that you don't see.
It's about 250.
When the utility system pays for other things. That you'll see this in the utilities as we go through the budget.
Yeah.
I believe we need to create back to an admin budget in the utility system so we know exactly what those costs are. Because right now, those costs are, in my opinion, are buried within each utility.
We're going to show that to you.
You got to flush them out. So, in years past, the city went from anywhere from 5% to 10%. At one time, 25% of the utility system went to the general fund. But we start getting more sales tax, and the idea years past was as we get more sales tax revenues, you take less burden on the utility system. In my opinion, and if you talk to the auditor, the utility system, the expenses and the stuff against the utility system is so great it cannot support its own debt without tax supported debt. Where it should be able to stand alone. It's the utility system. Think of it like this: the utilities, you have governmental functions, you have enterprise proprietary functions. General fund is governmental functions. The airport is a business owned and operated by the city for profit. The utilities is a business owned and operated by the city for profit. The burdens on those on the profits of the utility system based on the general fund are great. So what I'm proposing is going back to a flat percentage. If you took, for example, that $621,000 from the utility system, and you made it, and that's roughly 6%. If you made it an 8%, it's an $800,000 transfer. Call it a day and leave it alone. For example, okay, how you want to break it up here as far as right of way or payment in lieu? It's all a payment in lieu of taxes. It's all it is. For y'all that don't know, you know what CPS has to pay general fund? 14%, and that's in the bond covenants. That's why the general fund of city of San Antonio gets so rich. That's why they never turn down electrical increase. Anyway, I'm just proposing that to literally increase it and do away with these shared admin costs.
And for context, your total, last time we calculated your total with the direct payments to staff, so our staff time, we'll go into that.
Yeah, it's almost
there is a separate admin budget, Mayor's request, so we'll have that for you when we talk about the budgets. I believe it's already, yeah, maybe, or there's a spot for it.
There's a spot.
Yeah, so we're gonna put it in there. That'll be an addition. The total transfer is about 7.5%.
Okay.
So that's what you're doing. So if you were to go to a total number, 7.5 or 8%.
So you go to 8%, it's an $800,000 transfer.
Yeah, I'll tell you, John doesn't want to see that because we're talking about one of the things he's mentioned to me that's going to come up during the public works, and we'll mention it now, is we were talking about the admin fee. One of the things that Mayor, you and I have talked about is when I look at the direct fees, like him paying, the utilities paying a portion of my time, a portion of Reader's time, et cetera. One of the things I think about is, okay, if this were a for-profit business operating on its own, and they were paying for those services in the marketplace, like hiring an HR person, hiring a finance guy, and hiring some administrator to oversee some aspect of it, what would they pay? What would that budget look like? And I think about that because you don't want that to get too squirrely, because if it gets way out of hand, it just becomes unjustifiable. So right now, our total transfer is around $250,000, I believe, of salaries that go to HR, they go to Leroy, they go to part of Deborah's time, part of my time. We'll show you the breakouts of what that looks like. And I think that's a reasonable fee. I think that's okay. But we talked about, okay, what would a more reasonable fee look like? And the only kind of, the next step was, we talked about revenues. If we just said, okay, the way that we figure out for instance, each of the utilities' contribution on their franchise fee or whatever, the franchise fee is based on the revenue. Well, so is everything else. Because it makes no sense to do it any other way in some ways, because you really want those utilities to have the ability to pay. You don't want to weaken them. They need to be making enough revenue to pay their fair share. So we look at what their anticipated revenues is, and that ends up translating to the amount of the right of way they pay, the amount of my time they pay, et cetera. It's based on the revenue. Well, if you did the same thing overall, you just said, okay, Scott, how much of your time or how much revenue is the general fund bringing in versus utility fund? Add those two numbers together, divide into that total, and that gives you a percentage of each. Well, right now, it's like 1/3, 2/3. 2/3 of revenue comes from the utility fund, and 1/3 comes from the city. And right now, the breakup by time is 75-25. In other words, 3/4, 1/4. So if I were to make it more fair, then we would do the opposite of the mayor saying, we'd actually reduce our charge to the utility fund, not a lot, but by a little bit, to make it, rather than be 3/4, it'd be 2/3. Does that make sense? Do y'all follow all that? That's a lot of mental math up here. But we'll talk more about that when we get into those individual budgets, and that's a policy decision. I mean, it's one that I've generally made and recommended in the past, is what those transfers look like. But as you can see, the mayor wants to put that back on the table for policy discussion, which is great. It's great. Okay, utility funds.
Okay.
So again, this is a lot of this is just more trend analysis. Now, one of the things that we are looking at is a forecasting service to help us better look at the utility funds in a more strategic manner. So thinking about things like weather, like how does weather play a role? Because here, as you already know, like rain, if you get a lot of rain, we haven't had that problem lately. It sure has been just in the last couple of weeks, but over a full year, it hasn't been an issue. But if we went back into a wet season, then your water revenues are going to take a hit.
What?
Water revenues are going to take a hit. People use less water. They don't need water in their grass as much because it's raining. So that's something that we don't really have the technical expertise. We don't have an analyst on staff that look at whether tie that back into our actual usage. Say, okay, this is what they're forecasting for your summer for next year. This is what it means in terms of water. The same thing you do for the electric. Electric is highly susceptible to temperature. Right? The hotter it is, the more electricity you're going to use in the summer. If you have a mild summer, which we did about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, in the last 5 years, we had kind of a mild summer, and you could see the difference in the electric revenue that year. It was not inconsequential amount. In any case, we didn't do any. My point is in saying all that, we didn't do any of that for this. We didn't get that technical. We really just looked at your overall trends and revenues, and that's where these are coming from. So one of the big ones to point out is garbage. Now, the reason you see the big shift is because we were with Waste Management for years, where they did the commercial collection, we did the residential, and now we're collecting all of it. And so you'll see a jump in collections, and we'll recognize it. Rather than recognizing that as a separate payment, it's all showing up right here in that garbage collection line. Other than that, going down the line, you have water sales. I don't really want to read off these numbers, actually. If y'all want to just look at these, and just kind of look at the trends, and if you want to raise your hand or ask questions, anything that you think just kind of sticks out. Gas is one of them. Like you'll see gas is up considerably. Well, that's because you guys, the council raised rates, and so that's why that revenue is up because we're charging. I think that rate went up by 75% or something. I mean, it was a huge. It wasn't a small rate. It was a huge rate increase for gas, and that's you can see that in black and white. This is the result.
So you have gas sales and then city utilities gas. What's
Yeah.
the difference between those?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you'll see that under all of them, like,
Okay.
so you do utilities electric, utilities water, and then you have penalties, whatever. So, what is the difference between
Those are all,
utilities?
like,
The
all
utilities is,
What are utilities? Like,
let me tell you what, it's what the city pays in utility bills
Okay.
for city buildings and things
so
like
that's,
that.
that's city hall, the library.
It's income from city facilities.
Now, we don't charge a special rate to the city. That is something else that you could do when you talk about
So-
8%.
So there's an actual utility bill generated for city hall?
yes, for every city owned facility. Yeah.
Wonderful, okay.
We don't pay late fees.
Well, I was gonna ask that question too. You collect $60,000 a year in late fees?
Yeah, 10% of the bill.
I know, but $60,000 in a year?
I don't know what the number is, but. Well, you're going, where did you say?
Hold on, I'm adding up the penalties for water, gas, sewer, garbage, and electric.
It's the penalties.
Okay, if you add them all up, that's $60,000. That's a lot.
Is that including the reading fees too, or that's just?
That's every, that's all, everything goes into a penalty.
Okay, okay.
On the water sales, does that include, the airport water?
You mean the irrigation?
No,
No, the water.
So all the customers out there have received bills from the city. They're on our rent. I say all the customers. The tenants don't have it. It's just
The water meters out there are served from the public water system.
Right.
It's not the airport's water system,
Right.
it's public water system. So they should get utility bills as anyone else would.
Right.
The electric's a different issue. We need to talk about that because, no, the city has meters out there, but the city does not buy wholesale from the electric provider. You can't retail. So the
Right.
city in the past always had a special electric rate for the airport
That's right.
because you could only take if you buy it from CPS, whatever it is, divided amongst kilowatt hours, and that's all you can charge them. You can't mark it up.
Right.
Okay, but I don't know how you do that. I don't know if that's still that case.
I know they have a special, they're in a special system, but I need to
They
verify.
have a different rate, report maybe? Don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you might want to look into that.
Okay, I was just.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Fire department, so they think utilities should, the building, right? Or what else are, okay.
They should.
They pay what?
Utilities,
Yeah,
city.
yeah. Now they're,
Anything else that we do that's,
no, I'll just say from time to time, the county will have something that will happen, and they'll say, hey, we had this issue.
Okay,
You want to go on
And,
it, or bill.
and they're one of the ones that are exempt, like when we go in state for water restrictions, the fire department is exempt from that.
Right.
does the fire department track how much water they use for training? Because they should, if they
They've gotten a
don't,
lot better.
they should have fire hydrant meters that they run.
Yeah, they've got
For
a lot
training.
better. They don't, they're, I don't know if they're doing any of our flushing. Fire department.
I just thought
They don't do our flushes.
Yeah.
Huh?
But they have gone through, like, part of ISO. They were, so one of the things that ISO,
Sure.
and generally the fire department will handle that, that portion of the inspection. So go ahead and look at your pressures, and that becomes part of your ISO rating. So there's a limited, very limited amount, and that only happens in 3 months.
No, I'm not trying to put any restrictions on it, it's just that it's a partnership that they should let us know when they actually utilize water.
It's gotten, I would say it's gotten a lot better over the last 5 years.
Okay.
As far as that communication.
Oh, if Chief Hook on, it's helpful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, with the chief came on, chief
Okay.
came on, it's made the best.
Yeah.
And he's all about the collaboration. What else to talk about? As far as
Johnny.
meetings, what's that?
Johnny.
What is
job.
So when they get hired to do something outside of work, then what do you guys do?
You don't
Jobs?
spend a lot of money.
Oh,
Well,
it's
I've
revenue.
never seen
When
that.
people pay for something.
Okay.
Work.
It is, it's
Yeah,
It doesn't sound.
I just, it caught my eye. Heck is down.
What has been extra?
Okay. The CDBG grant, we're not gonna close that out this year,
Yes.
so you still have it funded for next year too? The $252,000 one, or do we have another
No.
grant coming? Cause I don't know of another grant.
No, I think that was under here.
Okay. That's $259,000 that shouldn't be there. That's all right.
So,
Okay, I just thought I'd ask that. Thank you. Go ahead, Sheena.
there was cool.
No, this is utilities, my friend. Okay? What would you consider miscellaneous revenue? Jeanette,
I'm sorry.
what would you consider as miscellaneous revenue? In your utility system, you're gonna get $10,000 this year. Oh, okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Recycling's not falling under garbage collection?
No, we're talking about like we, so we get metal, we'll collect
Oh,
metal,
okay.
that kind of
Different
things. And
Is this, replacement of radios and meters, the budgeted amount, is that when people have to pay you to replace their meters?
Yes. You want them over?
Thanks,
Okay.
Paul.
Got it, got
Oh,
it.
when the
there's some-
contractor jacks it up? Yes.
Yeah.
Like it just happened?
Oh, there's a strange thing. When I talked about your late fees being 60, there's a separate $12,000 for reading next disconnect, so that, now we're up to 72.
That's pretty good.
That's a lot.
So one thing to be aware of, just like in the general fund, some of those revenues like permits, there's offsetting expense. It's not actually 100% offsetting, right? But the same thing is true here. We have revenue items for things like penalties and other things, but there are expenses related to turning zones. That's why we have those penalties, because there's expenses related to turning utilities back on. The same thing with job and really there's expenses related, which is why those fees get generated in the first place.
Is, streetlights, the power for those included in city utilities? And if so, then what's his streetlights? Is that, you still allow people to pay for a streetlight and y'all put it up?
Right.
Okay. Didn't know you still did that. Okay, okay.
They can just choose to go to the street.
If
They
you,
want to pay for it, the poles and whatever.
yeah, right there behind you on that pole, right there behind you, you want a street light on it, you sign a paper, pay for the light, and it's there. Huh?
I'm sure my neighbors would love that.
You know, a lot of people didn't like it when I put one up, and I said, suck it up.
But to that point, can we take them down? Can we pay you to take them down?
They're no longer in use.
Yeah, it's like really bright.
Oh, we will adjust them.
Okay.
Yeah, they
You gotta do that.
I will say this, our goals, one of the things came into things was we could do LEDs in it. I know the primary one here will come in
Okay.
different bulbs. And apparently not, like those Cobra head LEDs, they come in one watt, which is hard to believe. But we can adjust the angle as John is saying, but the brightness seems to be just kind of one option. I still find it hard to believe.
I'm back talking about penalties. You get very many NSFs.
Yeah. Insufficient funds.
Insufficient charge.
It's like $600.
That's an income.
Yeah, we charge them
$250. What you charge for 25?
We're charging.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you,
if they send
yeah.
a check and the check.
What I say, so you only want to have 10.
And after so many times, we cut them off.
Okay, no problem. Just picking on things. Okay.
We get a lot of checks, sir, a lot. It's kind of disappointing, because I got kiosks, I'm like, can we just kiosks, we got paid online, there's still a lot.
Well, the kiosk, the checks, there's no fee. Everything else is a fee too.
That's right, say 3%.
Yeah, checks and cash.
The
there's no
check,
fee.
the check is a burden. On the pay.
I don't know.
Well, it's
My
a,
wife
it's a burden on us.
is
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
use anything else.
I'm a
Yeah,
check
it's a-
writer. I believe in it.
Yes,
You have
There's a
to-
lot, that's what I'm saying, there's a lot of people writing checks.
Yeah.
A lot.
yeah, a lot of people do.
Right.
Okay, sorry to ask. Anybody have any questions on that? I'm sure as you look at it more, we go through things you might. Go ahead.
The airport revenue's on here as well.
Yeah.
Just so you know, so we have utility funds, I think page 2 is airport. Yeah, page 2 and page 3, I was looking at that. But that's pretty straightforward as well, how much we're charging. Now, we put the percentage at the top. That's something council will adopt, but we're just plugging in 3% right now. You can do 2%, you can do higher, but generally we've been in the 2 to 3% range for the
On what?
inflation.
So the baseball field, big emptiness that started in 2024.
Yep.
So
Who's in it?
we're going to plug that into the airport account.
No, because the direction I received from council, that was reminded of this morning, I'm really grateful for that, is, the official direction from the council was, go and try to get that thing, that area.
I made that motion,
released.
I know.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but plan B is if we get told no.
Then maybe reduce it. That was the next thing, the other motion. You
Yeah,
made 3
because,
motions.
yes, I
The
did,
third
because
motion,
in the
yeah.
next, well, we're, hoping for plan A, plan B is we gotta get that verbiage changed in their agreement that says only they can use those
Right.
baseball fields to qualify for the
Correct.
lower amount.
Yeah.
And that's part of my questions in tonight's thing
Yeah.
too, where are we on that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The answer is I'm going to reach out to Dan.
But still, there should be a dollar amount being plugged in there, no matter what.
Okay.
Because if it's gonna be, if we qualify as a community one, there's still gonna be a lesser amount that's gonna have to be paid. That's what I'm saying. For next year, we need to plug in a potential dollar amount.
I don't have a problem with that. For a insert, you can insert the number we've been using. You can insert that, huh?
9,000.
9,000, maybe 10, whatever.
Something.
But you could plug that in because I believe, yeah, I got it. If we were able to successfully get it done, then why should we continue to release what we've been doing?
Right.
I got it. So they get some compensation.
Right.
I got it. I don't have a
And
problem.
that way, the FAA, they look
Yeah.
at it and say,
Scott, I got no problem with that. I got to ask you a question on the airport. The ramp grant, do we automatically get that each year?
We plug it in, it'll be offset by an expenditure.
Okay.
So, and we'll, like this year, I don't think we're gonna use.
Is it a
So
50-50?
this short, no, it's a 90-10.
90-10.
Our classification of airport changed.
Okay.
We're 50, now we're 90-10, which is great.
Okay,
But we don't always use every penny of that.
right.
money
And it
because-
doesn't carry over.
What's that?
It
And it doesn't carry over. It's
Okay.
every year you use it, or lose it kind of.
Got
it.
But we plug it in as if we're gonna use all of it.
Got it?
So that plugs in expense to us at 10,000, revenue at 90, and then expenses of 100, right?
Right.
But
Right.
we, yeah, like this year, we'll see how we finish up.
Right.
400.
Random question,
Yes.
for, like the skydiving, cultural skydiving, is there a sales tax that we get from that?
No,
Like,
so
do we
that-
get hangar or building?
Yeah, that was something Councilman Lee asked me to look into right before he left. And we did, staff, Leroy stuff out. We did look into that. And it's kind of strange because, like if you look at Honda gets property tax on some of their executive hangars where they were built by somebody else. They're getting the improvement as improved value. We aren't getting that. I feel like we should, but it's not something we can, I can force the appraisal district to do, but it is something we brought to their attention and say, hey, this appears to be absent. Why aren't we getting paid some kind of property tax out of the airport? We should also be getting,
supposed to get some on the planes.
right, you're also supposed to get that tax on the planes.
When a commercial
that
space
depends.
Right.
Yeah, that also
What is it?
Yeah, it depends on how they declare that stuff. But,
Right.
but we should, but we should. But
Yeah.
Brask, that's the whole thing. They're out there. That's one of the. That's why we were going to do it. It's mostly they buy our fuel, right? But also they should be paying some taxes. Now, they're the only ones that I think that applies to. There might be one other. In any case, there should be some taxes, and I think there should be some sales tax on the skydivers.
Yeah, so any business.
So we're not getting
Right.
any of that either.
So Honda's getting it, we're not.
Well, they're getting some
We don't
revenue
know.
on
We have to
property and
get-
sales
yeah.
tax because understand Honda is also a completely different animal. They've got a rail yard. They've got all kinds of things going on out there that are very different from our situation. The point is, they do get tax revenue, and we get like you said, and I feel like there's stuff going on out
Where's
there
their
we should be
business
getting,
agreement?
but the city doesn't have any direct control over making that happen.
Well, any other business in town has to have an agreement with the city, right, with regarding sales tax.
No,
It's the sales taxes are automatic.
yeah, that's we
Okay.
don't.
To the
But-
comptroller's office.
But doesn't he have to do something like the little honey guy that was over here? He had to have, do some paperwork with the city
Okay,
for paying sales tax or something, some license, something.
I don't know about that.
And so,
No, so the sales tax is off to the comptroller. When you register for business, you get a tax ID. When you sell things, you declare your at the end of the year or quarterly, I think, your sales taxes. What you sell.
but you still have to register.
Yeah, you have to register with the state, but not with us. Now, businesses, you know, licenses, permits, that kind of thing, to do a business, but it's not, it has nothing to do with taxes.
Oh, okay.
That said, the other trick that people play, right, is where their offices are located out of, and as far as sales tax payroll or that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's what's going on at our airport, or maybe we can't, I think it's okay to talk about brass. There are businesses doing business out there, but they're not paying taxes to us, and it may be because they're doing some kind of loophole, if you will, where they're registering or saying that their sales tax related payments are out of another area.
That also be with the, other business that does their winter training here, that does the flying of the veterans.
Tree flags.
Tree flags.
Skydive.
It has to, no, tree flights, yeah, it's nonprofit, so they may not be subject to some of those taxes anyway. But I know that was something we were expending. I'm not trying to think of it, but that was something that he put in the report together for Councilman Lee, and that is on our to-do list to follow up on. And I know that he did reach out to Comptroller.
Okay.
They were suggesting putting a number for youth baseball, and we suggested maybe the 9,000 that historically we put in there.
So,
Right quick, I found out what jobbing is. I went to the computer and looked. It is for the anytime that they put the banners up. Like,
you're hired out to do something.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay.
You're hired out to do
It's just
something.
an odd term.
I have a question for you before we close up here, Scott.
Yeah.
The park grant that we approved funding back in February, but still hasn't been finalized, the $400 and some odd thousand. Speaking with the auditor before, when a grant comes to us in a fiscal year, all those grant funds show up as revenue.
That's right.
So are we anticipating getting that grant funded anytime soon?
Define soon. The guy, I think he said,
You understand where I'm going?
yeah, when we met out there on site,
Just a conversation.
yeah, Jonah and I met with him out on site, with him, the guy that
Okay.
is helping coordinate that grant from the state of Texas. And he is coordinating a weird agency, EPA, is part of it.
Okay.
Through the state. Anyway, the point is, he thought it was gonna take 6 months or so.
Okay.
So, but we should, to your point, we should be getting those funds in that fiscal year.
That's why I was curious.
So we probably need to plug in.
It's just a thought because it's an in and out, but
That's right.
but it's showing it is because the auditor put it in.
That's right.
Well, what about the USDA one for the community service that?
That we should be done by this year.
Okay.
October, because keep in mind, so for the newbies,
It should close out.
when we talk about year, we're always talking about fiscal year, which for us is September 30th. And that thing, I'm certainly hoping we have all the checks cashed from USDA by September 30th. We're getting close already, but there's a certain amount of money out. I will just say, this isn't, again, the place where I was mentioning it, this rain, and just looking at it, we've got a contractor who's come out. He's being overly optimistic when we talk about his timelines. When we get the official timeline from him, he's still saying it's gonna be done. I mean, there's no way
There's no way.
that thing is done. I think there's no way. But, you know, they're telling us they're gonna get it done, so we can tell you what they tell us. I'm just gonna tell you, think it's,
Okay.
yeah, probably just teasing.
Okay, what we're gonna do is wrap up here if someone doesn't have any other questions for this. This was, I know I talked a lot, I wish more people, I mean, I think everybody did too, I hope. Read your stuff. This gives you an idea of where the revenues are and how the revenues are coming in for each different fund. We'll move into our next workshops, we'll start talking about expenditures. Okay, that may take a little bit more time. If somebody has any questions, the whole idea is feel free. I mean, come on, I gave John, Jeanette, and all the other folks enough grief when we talk about expenditures. Trust me, it's just, you got a question, it's the time to ask it, not the time after we approve it. Because the whole idea is to everybody be comfortable so they can put together a proposed budget so we can get it to Deborah for publishing and the whole 9 yards. Then we start the public hearings. And the reason it says proposed, because we do public hearings first, and then after the public hearings, we put it in the final form with the tax rates in there. Okay? Don't hold back, do your homework, come ready.
Yeah, next time bring your books. I mean, a lot today. I appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. And anything from us, please let us know ahead of time. Or any questions that we can, the appropriate department director to give us information.
Your next workshop, just as a matter of announcement, while we're on it, it'll be the 9th.
Right.
We're gonna cover PD, animal services, emergency management, and community development. That'll be good.
Take the easiest one first. Oh, I'm sorry.
Code enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
We're on their TV.
Yeah, well,
It
I,
doesn't say code compliance in there though? It is?
Everything that falls under the PD,
Yep, that would make sense.
okay? And then the community development too, also with that. So,
that's gonna be
we'll
a
start out with that, and
Yeah.
feel free to what have you, and we work through that. And, please come with all your questions. Keep it in mind, the revenues that we are talked about. So the budgets are pretty much tied to these revenues, the proposed, but you got, but if you have some changes, think about where you gotta get more money to get them. All right? Thank you, we're gonna adjourn this.
Thank you all.
We're gonna adjourn this workshop at 4:44. Thank you.
We'll have a meal right after 5. Should be, I said we should have a meal delivered right after 5 at Whataburger, so
Okay.
it'll be a few minutes,
About
we gotta
15
set
minutes,
this up for
so
the
let's-
next council.
Okay,